So this was something new that I heard this week, which I actually thought was quite sharp. So there are a few websites I go to, to listen to Torah. Baruch Hashem, I have to come and travel from Efrat, so I need plenty of things to listen to. So one of my favorite Tanakh websites with audio is Aleph Beta, if you know Aleph Beta from Ray Foreman. But this year they've added a bunch of new speakers. So I emailed them this week about this particular one that I found. One of their new speakers, Beth Lesh, I don't know, but very insightful. So I'll share what she put out this week. One of the questions that really bothers the Mefarshim over and over, and we mentioned it a little bit last week, and it doesn't get less weird in this week's parsha, is that God says to Moshe, Va'erel Avraham el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov be'el Shaddai Ushmi Adonai lo nodati lahem. I appeared to the Avot as Kel Shakai and not as Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is just A, weird, B, false, right? Like you go throughout. It's not like in Sefer Breshit the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is not used. It's in fact used all the time, many times. So what does this even mean, right? What would it possibly mean that God didn't reveal himself as Kel Shakai, meaning they were aware of the fact that God had a name Yud Kei Vav Kei? Like it seems evident, it is mentioned in Nevuot, in conversations. It's not like this is a big secret. In fact, Avram is Korei B'Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's not like they don't know what this name is. Right? Like that is one of the first things we hear about Avram in literally, it's either Rishon or Sheni of Lech Lecha. That's Rishon. Right? This is 8 psukim into meeting Avraham. Well, let's start at, 7 psukim. Here's 7 psukim into Avram's life, as far as we know it. Vayira Adonai el Avram. Vayomer l'zarchat in haaretz hazeh vayiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai hanira elav. Vayatek misham ha'ar miken l've'el vayira lo be'el miyam v'ayim miken vayiven sham mizbeach l'Adonai vayikra b'shem Adonai. Right? What are you talking about? You don't know the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei calls to him. He builds a mizbeach to Yud Kei Vav Kei hanira elav, and he builds a mizbeach to Yud Kei Vav Kei, and he's korei b'shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. What are you talking about? Right? It's not just that that's weird. Right? You read Breshit and it just seems to be utterly untrue. Yeah. Right? It's just like, it's one of those things. Like, there are certain things that I don't understand why Bible critics are bothered. This one, at least I understand why they're bothered, right? I may not bechlal hold of their tirutzim, but I also am bothered by this. All the Mefarshim are bothered by this. Like, what is going on? Right, no, so their solution is always, well, look, the Yud Kei Vav Kei passages are written by one document, and the other ones are written by other documents, and blah, 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 blah. Good for them. Good for them. Honestly, it's not just that it's wrong, and it's not just that it's lazy. It's just not creative. It's like, it's a bad read, and it's not creative. Like, really? Okay. So what she suggests is that, right, well, what has to be is not that, they didn't know the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's not true, they did. Instead, she argues that it must be a statement of the way in which God relates to the Avot as opposed to the way he relates to Bnei Israel. And she says, okay, well, what does it mean to appear to a person, for God to appear to a person as Kel Shakai? What does that mean? What would it mean? Like, where would we find proof, right, or an indication of what it could mean theologically for God to relate to a human being from the perspective of his name, Kel Shakai?
Through nature.
So, where would you get an indication? Like, right, textually, right? What would you do?
You would look for Kel Shakai.
You would look for Kel Shakai, and you would see what types of chiyuvim, conversations happen after Kel Shakai is introduced. So, if you look at Breshit Yud Zayin, so there you get Vayi Avram ben Tishim Shana v'Tesha Shanim Vayira Adonai el Avram Vayomer Elav Ani El Shaddai Hitalech lefanai ve'yeh tamim. So this is a perfect pasuk because God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, appears to Avram, but then he introduces himself, and not as Yud Kei Vav Kei. He says, "Ani Kel Shakai." Right? Even though in the same pasuk, he is Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right? So it's a very good pasuk. It's saying, what does it mean when God introduces himself as Kel Shakai, as opposed to Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we know exists, right? By virtue of the fact that it was what the pasuk said 3 words ago, right? So, what does it say? Hitalech lifanai ve'yeh tamim. What does that mean? Right? What does hitalech lifanai ve'yeh tamim? What does that imply about the name Kel Shakai?
Walk before me always.
What does it mean for God to walk behind?
The underlying.
You don't see him as much.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You don't see him as much. You don't see him as
Wait,
much.
he's commanding to walk before him?
What? Yes. The demand to walk before him.
Why does it necessarily mean that he's walking behind? Like, I feel like, why is it
God says, "Hitalech lefanai," walk in front of me.
Yeah, so...
Right?
So
How can somebody walk in front of you if you're not behind them?
Okay, but God doesn't have a location. So.
Fine. Good. So what does it mean? So then let's skip to another place and let's try to figure it out. Now let's go all the way to the end of Breshit. Breshit, right? Memchet. Again, where we get this again. Vayomer Yaakov el Yosef. El Shaddai nira Elai beluz be'eretz Canaan vayvarech oti. Vayomer Elai hineni mafrecha v'yarbiti chandicha l'kalamim v'natati artzat l'zarcha achrach l'chazar olam v'atash nevanenu l'nuchaber t'mitzrayim ad boi lechem mitzrayim alihim Ephraim v'nashek Reuven v'Shimon v'Levi. Right? Yaakov introduces his brachot to Ephraim and Menashe and says, I am blessing them from the perspective of Kel Shakai. Right? And what does he say? Right? I mean, that's clear what's going on. Right? He says, I'm giving you the bracha from the vantage point of the bracha that I got from God when he appeared to me as Kel Shakai. Okay? And what is his bracha? And then you'll hear the key words again. Pasuk Tes Vav. Vayvarech et Yosef vayomar. Ha-Elohim asher hitalchu avotai lefanav. Abraham v'Yitzchak. Ha-Elohim haroeh oti me'odi ad hayom hazeh. Right? Again, there should be something that should jump out at you, which is yes, when he introduces God as Kel Shakai, the context is Avotai shel hitalchu avotai lefanav, meaning my ancestors went in front of him. And then what is the metaphor that is used to describe the relationship of God and the Avot from the perspective of Kel Shakai? It's one that becomes very famous later on in Tehillim, but it's already mentioned here. Haroeh. Right? Haroeh oti. Right? That is the shepherd. So this I did not know. But what is unique about the way shepherds lead their flocks?
They lead them from behind.
They lead them from behind, and the way they lead them is that they only push the back sheep, and then the sheep push each other. So, right, the first one is cognizant of the fact the shepherd is there, but basically sheep follow themselves, right? And they're very unaware of the fact that God is there, right? Now, she suggests something which I think is very clever, which is, okay, if Kel Shakai is the nature of a relationship, which requires hitalchu lefanai, right, which is the metaphor describing it is ro'eh, what does it imply? Or what does it mean for God to walk behind you?
For you to always be thinking of God.
No. It's for God to relate to you in a way that you don't necessarily see him at all times. Right? He's telling you, walk ahead of me. Right? Right?
Way too through intermediaries.
What? Or not necessarily intermediaries, but his presence is not as open. Right there. And think about it. In Sefer Bereshit, how many open miracles are there?
None.
None. Right? There are none. Right? Meaning God is there. He is leading. His presence is there, but not in a frontal way.
Creation.
Right? Yes, but the Avot don't see that. Right? The Avot aren't there. Right? And then she says, okay, good. So let's say that's the case. That Kel Shakai, and by the way, Chazal understand this, because Chazal understand the name Kel Shakai as Misha Amar Le'olamo Dai. Right? That it's the name of nature. Right? It's the name that describes the way God relates to the world through nature. Right? Why in Shmot, in Va'era, is that not going to work?
Well, nature doesn't really get the 6 times.
So first of all, obviously you're going to have to do open miracles, which is not going to be Kel Shakai. Why do you need miracles?
He wants to. His point is to show that.
So one is to prove who he is, and there's another sort of technical reason. I don't know if it's technical. So there's a good psychological reason. Because the Jews have been suffering and don't know him. Right? They've been over the Avodah Zarah possibly. Right? Mekotze Ruach Avodah Kasha. Right? It's very nice to tell Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Po v'sham, I'll give you a nevuah, but you don't need open miracles. Trust me, because their life isn't so bad. They're individuals on a high, rarefied spiritual level. It's relatively easy to tell them, Hidalchu lefanai, go in front of me and be aware of my presence, even if it's not in your face. But if God is coming and saying, I need to teach the world, and specifically the Jewish people, who don't know who I am, who've been suffering for hundreds of years, who are at a low spiritual level, if I need to shove it in their face, I am God, Kel Shakai is not going to work. You don't take someone who's suffering, who's idolatrous, and start giving them philosophical lectures and saying, well, be aware that God is in the background. Right? It's not going to work. God said, the avot I could appear but Kel Shakai, but now I'm going to introduce myself as Yud Kei Vav Kei, as the God who's beyond time, as the God who's in your face, or the God who is, right, who can be immanent in the world. Because he needs it. It's part of the educational process for the Mitzrim and for the Jews. Right? And therefore Moshe is saying, it's not that the other weren't aware that I was Yud Kei Vav Kei, I was the God beyond time, I was the God, right, that could be anywhere and always. It's just that they didn't need that type of manifestation. The Jews do. Right? So that I thought was actually a very close read of the Psukim, and it makes a lot of sense, right? It explains why. It's not that God wasn't Yud Kei Vav Kei before, that the Avot didn't know whatever it is that Yud Kei Vav Kei represents. Is that, again, as Yaakov said, it's not that God is anywhere, right? It's that God chooses to manifest himself in different ways based on what is necessary for the context. And for the Avot, once was sufficient. The sort of background God of Kel Shakai, it doesn't work in Shemot. Right? It doesn't work in this context. And that's what God is saying, is that I have to express myself differently.
Does they need chizuk, basically?
Yeah, they need chizuk. They need a more frontal revelation of what and who God is. Something that wasn't as necessary for the Avot, who were individuals who lived relatively good lives and had God and had nevuah every so often. That doesn't hurt. But if you have nevuah, you don't need so much frontal miracles, right? God's talking to you. How much more do you need?
The average person needs some more.
Correct. And once you're done with a nation, especially a nation who's weak and suffering and has been over the Avodah Zarah, right? You need to come up with a different relationship. So I thought that was actually a very, very insightful read. Okay, good.